Don Morrison. Once again, I have a privilege of hosting this forum of candidates. We have 3 candidates running for 2 positions in the Greyhawk Community Association. Oh, 3 candidates running, 4 candidates running for 3 positions. I'll get it right. In the Retreat Village Association, we have 2 incumbent candidates running for 2 positions, and we did not include them tonight because we trust that everyone knows of their good work. And since no one is running against them, there's no need to drag this out forever and ever. So we'll focus only on the Greyhawk Community Association candidates tonight. And on your far right is Eric Redleaf. David Van Omen is on your far left in the empty chair. Richard Zielinski is here. And we have, last but not least, our wonderful treasurer, and Jeanette Griswold. So, she's noticeable among the men, the rose among the thorns. We'd like to start giving each candidate, should we wait, or should I talk a bit more for Mr. Van Omen, or is he?
I just left him a message. I think at our board meeting on Monday, he said he thought was probably going to be having a closing and wasn't sure if he could make it on time. So.
Well, by all means, we'll go on during the closing.
All right.
We'd like to start by giving each candidate a brief opportunity to introduce themselves. How long have you lived in the Greyhawk community? I want this time, in this round of question, the single most important issue that you feel the Board of Directors needs to address this year. Just one. We'll get to all the rest in a little bit. And the single most important issue that you are passionate about in the Greyhawk community. And those may be completely different. And we're going to start, obviously, with Ms. Griswold.
Well, thank you very much. He obviously didn't give us the questions in advance. I am personally passionate about trying to build community. I think it's very important in any, in my condo association as well as in the Greyhawk Master Association, to try to promote community, to try and engage neighbors so that neighbors know neighbors. And so I think that that's a very, very important thing. I think Greyhawk does an admirable job with all of our events to try and encourage people to engage. And obviously we have a lot of committees that people can volunteer for, another way to engage. So I think that's the most important thing. And I forgot the second half.
Well, there are 3.
Oh, 3.
How long have you
I
lived
forgot.
here?
Okay,
What
how
are
long
you
have I lived
passionate about?
Yes.
The single most important issue
I
for the board.
immediately went into passion.
That's okay.
I have lived here since 2001, so that would be 17 years. And I'm passionate about the community thing. And what's the most important thing? I think at this point, as we age, since we celebrated our 25th year last year, that are trying to stay on top of maintenance and improvements to make sure that we don't slide back. And so I think that's probably, in the coming year anyway, going to be one of our most important areas to address.
Great. We'll pass it on to Eric.
Okay, I'm Eric Redleaf. I manage a fund that invests in properties, and we've owned 2 in Greyhawk that I know of. We only own 1 right now. We've owned it for about 6 years. Part of why I'm running is I think there are a fair number of investors. We're a long-term investment company, so we care about the community. Tenants don't generally participate in governance of the community, so I thought it's an underrepresented group. And I'm also a realtor, team leader of a large team at HomeSmart, and we property values, and that the HOA is, I've worked with a lot of HOAs, and this is a really good one. So I'd like to sort of learn what they do on the inside. I can share with other HOAs that are more frustrating. I think I love the community. I don't really know what issues have been plaguing the community or the association.
Okay.
So I don't.
Thank you. I'll take that one back and I'll give this one to you.
Thank you, Wolf.
It's on. Go.
You didn't get that, did you? I said, thank you, Wolf.
Oh, yes.
My name's Richard Zielinski. I've been in the community since 1999, longer than some. But as far as passion, been very fortunate in the sense that in the last 19 years, the community has remained good looking, put it that way. Upkeep is amazing. People on the board, various committees that I've been fortunate to serve on. The thing that I found is that oftentimes when you're at a board meeting, people in the audience see one thing, and when you go to meetings in back rooms, it's a whole different animal. But what I've seen with this board and with everyone who works here, they're upfront with everything, which is really nice. People who have been in other communities, we've all heard the horror stories. In the last month, there have been articles in the newspaper about the horror stories of various community associations. Not the case with this one. So what am I passionate about are two things. One, as Eric and Jeanette both said, keeping what we have, making our community even better than it has been, but not getting into issues or having the issues that some others do. We're very fortunate. I want to keep that. One might say, well, you shouldn't go on a board just to maintain. Well, if you work with this board and if you work on various committees that we have, you'd find that you do want to maintain because they do great work. If they didn't, people would be moving out of here like crazy, and they're not. People are moving in versus moving out. So that's my passion. That's what I'd like to do.
Great. I'm going to ask a few questions that all of the candidates will answer, I hope, nicely, I hope. And then we'll open the questions up to the three of you who very much deserve the right to ask them anything that you like. And I'll do these one at a time, and we'll do them so that you don't forget all of the verbiage. Do you believe that the GCA Board of Directors has prudently spent association funds in the past year?
I have to say I'm not familiar enough with the budget. I didn't look in detail to comment on how well they spent it. I think the dues are pretty reasonable for the level of services you get. So
Okay.
as long as they're
That's all right. You'll have many other questions you can expound on, I'm sure.
Okay, well, being the treasurer of the current board, I do believe that the association has spent money wisely. We have tried very diligently to stay within budget. We did have some water main breaks towards the end of the year of 2017, which have not done lovely things for our budget, but we were still very, very close to being on budget for last year. And I think currently we have, or as of the end of January, was the last statements I have, we had approximately 871,000 in reserves, plus approximately 2.1 million in the Community Enhancement Fund. So I think from a financial standpoint, we have done exceptionally well, and we are very physically conservative.
I fully agree with Jeanette. Being on the Community Enhancement Committee and the Operational Review Committee, you have a good idea what they're looking at, what the board is looking at to enhance the community. and they do a really good job in just not spending money. For instance, I'll just give one example. Everyone likes the Christmas decorations that we have in the community. That costs money. But fortunately, as Jeanette said, our board and our association is solvent to where that money can be spent to enhance the looks. And I think everyone likes it. I've never heard a negative comment about that type of thing. And again, the meetings that I've been at, the regular board meetings and the other community meetings, I've been impressed with the fact that the board is very conservative, which is my philosophy.
Keep the microphone. Okay. Because I'm gonna start this next
I
question
don't
with
like microphones.
2 in a row, that's all right. We wanna make sure everybody and the camera hears. If we don't speak into that, it doesn't get fed with sound.
Thank you.
We have a wonderful board by unanimous opinion in most respects, but we always, each in our own lives and in our corporate lives, can continue to grow or improve. What can the association boards do to improve the current property values in Grayhawk?
What can they do to improve the current property values? What they're, frankly, I think Eric mentioned it. One, I don't believe that my fees for the year have gone up more than $20 in 19 years. I like that very much, and I'd like to keep that, as well as I'm sure everyone else in the community. With the money being conservative, they've done a great job in bringing people in. People want to live here. This is, in my opinion, you know, location, location, location. With what this board and what not only this board but past boards have done, the location has remained a destination, and I really don't like that term, but it's a destination that people would like to come to. The various to improve. I don't know. I think when you have 7 board members, you have 7 opinions, and everyone's opinion needs to be listened to, and everybody's opinion is not always going to be the same as the others. But that's the one thing, as I mentioned before, I like. Everyone is given a voice, and everyone's opinion is respected. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. Same question. I'll repeat it, yes. What can the association do to help maintain or improve our current property values?
Well, I think the association can, as Richard mentioned, control the cost of the monthly assessments or quarterly assessments in the case of the GCA board. And we can try to make sure that all of the property is maintained, like for instance, the retreat, you know, make sure that the roads are in good condition, and so they repave the roads. We worked with the city of Scottsdale this last year to make sure that the roads outside of the gated communities were also maintained, and I think to continue to, for the architectural committee to continue to work with everybody to make sure that what is put in is you know, looks nice and fits in with the city's vision for what the northern part of Scottsdale is supposed to be. So I think, for the most part, I think that the board has done, you know, everything that we should do to try and improve property values. But it's not something that you can do and then it's finished. It's an ongoing process. So I think that we should continue on that process.
Eric?
Okay, so my thoughts on this is that the board needs to actively engage the whole community at events, at things, and be sure they're not seen as a nuisance, that people appreciate the improvements and that things are being done that help the community, because there's so many HOAs that I think detract from the value rather than, you know, the whole concept is to add to the value of the properties through consistency and a little bit of control. But a lot of them, if the neighborhood complained about the, I don't think they do with this group, but if in general the HOA is viewed negatively, it hurts property values. So making sure that you're doing stuff and that doesn't cost money is just being engaged.
Keep the microphone because you're gonna get 2 in a row. What role, if any, do you feel that the GCA Board of Directors should play in the development of our entire Grayhawk area? Not Grayhawk proper, but the Grayhawk area.
I think I don't know how much of the Grayhawk area is not the Grayhawk community.
There's quite a bit of property to our southwest and slightly to the south of us that is, and to the west, that is totally undeveloped, that would impact us greatly. And do you feel that the board should have, or what kind of role as a voice for our community in that
They should
development?
have an active role in the voice for the community on that.
Okay.
Yeah, they should. I don't know what to say on that.
Okay, we do have a committee that works to make sure that to keep the board informed on what developments are going on in the Grayhawk vicinity. So anything south of us, east, west, we are part of the board, met with the DMV folks about the project at Scottsdale and Thompson Peak. And so we try to always stay engaged and to know what's going on. When Bashas left the center, at Thompson Peak and Scottsdale, we try to stay on top of what's going in there. What kind of impact might these things have on our community? Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? Can we have any influence on, height restrictions or the amount of traffic that it might generate? So we do try to stay on top of those things and to be engaged in the conversation as the development is being discussed and progresses.
Richard? Well, just piggyback on what Jeanette said, I know that there's a lot of discussion with the city of Scottsdale and Phoenix. And I guess the best example I can give is the flood insurance. If we have to have flood insurance and the flood or the wash comes down from the north, and over the years the board has acted and talked with and so on with the city of Scottsdale and the city of Phoenix, and potentially I believe they're waiting to hear whether or not we will have to pay flood insurance because of their discussions with the city and with both cities. So it's things like that that are important to us. And I know they're very actively involved in city council and things like that. So.
And I can be assured you will address my flood insurance, which is now $1,300 a year in the retreat.
It's not going to affect you.
I know that.
I know.
That's why I'm pushing it
It's only the
that way.
rawhide wash.
You could ask
So we
them
don't-
to bring
Yeah.
up the retreat flood insurance as well.
It's not going to.
Okay, so perhaps the most pointed question, Richard.
Yes.
What do you think the board could do to most improve itself?
Continually, I guess the best thing a board can do is see what other boards do, remain active, don't get complacent with what is going on. I've mentioned that this board is very, they work well together, but that doesn't mean that one gets complacent. Keep listening to your neighbors, and I think one of the best things that happens in our community are all the activities, like the Easter egg hunt, the various areas, all the different things that go on. I have seen the board members walking around talking to people. You have to remain open, you have to be willing to change, and I think that's the most important thing that all board members should do. Listen to people, pay attention, and don't be hard-headed enough not to change.
Well, we are blessed as a community to have CCMC as our property manager, and CCMC has educational sessions almost every month at their offices, so I think it's important for board members to attend those to make sure that we're on, that we're fully educated on topics that relate to association management. And I think that it's good, we once a year have a strategic planning session. I think it's important for everybody to come together to be able to share their ideas. It could be something totally different that we've never tried before, but if we engage in more conversation, then new ideas will come out, and maybe better, maybe it won't work, but it's good to have those conversations. And I think it's very important, which I think we have on this board, that everybody respects everyone else's opinions, because it's important to have different viewpoints. It's not always perfect. I mean, you don't want everybody voting in favor or against something 100% of the time. And so, because it's good to have differing opinions. And I think this board has done a good job in that regard.
Okay, well, this was a good question for me, because pretty well established that one of the best things you can do for a group is to have diversity and to have outside input. So to have someone that has a different perspective from the core of the group who still shares a common interest is valuable. So that's, as I said, I'm approaching this as representing the investor owners, and still supporting the community, but so bringing a sort of outside perspective.
Great. Keep the microphone, because you're going to start the very last question I have, and I hope you've thought of questions that you might like to ask. And this is going to be difficult, but what one thing do you feel uniquely qualifies you to serve on our board of directors? One thing that uniquely qualifies you to serve on our board of directors.
Let me think for just a minute.
Okay.
I guess I think my that I've worked with a lot of boards, so that I haven't been on boards, but I've managed properties and owned properties in probably a dozen different HOAs. So I've seen how a lot of them operate firsthand, and so that gives me.
That's unique. That's great. To Jeanette.
One thing?
One thing.
Lord.
They're not going to ask me next year. I'm counting on it.
Well, it's probably the fact that, I've had a lot of experience, so I just say experience, I think that's it. Because I've been on at least 4 owners association boards, and I owned my own company for 25 years. And so I know how to deal with financials and, controlling budgets and those kinds of things. So I think the one thing that I would have would be a lot of experience.
Great. Richard?
The one thing, let's see, I've been in the community for 19 years. I've seen the growth, the changes. Been in the whole area for 36 years. Been in the school district for over 25 that serve this area. So I think dealing with the community, working with the community, and hopefully having a good understanding of what people in this area think. After, again, you have to go out and talk to people, but in general, I guess just being in the area and seeing everything and working in the school district and seeing the changes and the ability to work with people.
Great. I'm through. And now we're going to turn the
Question,
forum
ma'am?
over to you. Thank you. Or two.
I can do two.
Good.
Okay. Hi, my name's Lynn. I live in the retreat and I'm a snowbird. We live in Illinois, but we also have property in one of the condo associations and also in the retreat. And I am on one of the committees for the Greyhawk area. But my question is with the CCNRs, or not the CCNRs, I'm sorry, that amendment that we're trying to get people to pass, what is everybody's view on how to deal with short-term rentals if this doesn't pass? How are you going to deal with them, or what's your proposal?
I'm happy to have the candidates respond to that, but the candidates are bound to follow state law. And if we as a condominium, as a community association, do not pass a restriction on short-term rentals, and Linda, what is our short-term definition?
30 days.
30 days, of less than 30 days, we revert to state law. And there is nothing that the board members nor the Greyhawk Community Association can do about that because it is state law. We must have our majority of
2/3.
2/3 of the owners to vote in favor of that amendment. And then it becomes our Greyhawk Community Association rule and we can enforce it. Having said that, so that you know they don't have many options, I'll be happy to have these candidates tell you how they feel.
Well, first off, I would say that I know you, I can see your smile. Where in Illinois are you from?
Southwest of Chicago?
Okay, I lived in central Illinois, near Springfield.
I know that area well too.
Pardon?
I know that area also.
Good.
We'll talk later. But my thoughts, I live in Pinnacle, and I'll just give you a blank opinion. I think it should be, I think the thing should pass. I think it should be at least 30 days. Does that answer your question quick enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I will also say before I pass this microphone to Jeanette, that Jeanette is a resident of one of the condominium associations within the retreat. There are two, and they get a special pass because as a condominium association, encapsulated, they can pass their own regulation.
Yeah, actually, most of the condominium associations in their CCNRs already have a 30-day limit for short-term rentals. There's a friend of mine has a place in San Diego, and they just passed a 6-month minimum rental. So their short-term rentals are pretty long. And Scottsdale actually has a short-term rental prohibition ordinance. Unfortunately, when the state law was passed, saying that you couldn't have a short-term rental restriction, excuse me, unless your CCNR is prohibited. Then that superseded the Scottsdale ordinance, and so Scottsdale can no longer enforce it. I would love to see at least, all of the votes that we need to come in order to actually do something. At this point, we don't know. We're currently kind of set it for April to probably shut it down if we don't get enough votes. And we're currently approximately 1,000 votes short. So if anyone can get their neighbors to vote, that would be wonderful. And if you own multiple properties, you get to vote multiple times. Because you get to vote once per property, and you do too, and hopefully you have. So unfortunately, that's where we are.
As an investor, I think, I think a 30 days is good for the community. It would be good if that passed. I've done shorter term rental, and it really requires a lot of oversight. So if you're an outside investor and you're renting by the week, it's really difficult. But even if it passes, it's going to be very difficult to enforce with Airbnb and VRBO, and easier in the gated communities because it's harder to get people in and out. But it's pretty easy for someone to say, oh, this is a cousin or a relative, and say they're staying for this period. It's going to be a challenge.
It is a very difficult problem. You know, you live in the retreat, and the renter comes to the guard gate, and their name has been put on the gate access list, and they're allowed in, and the key is under the flower pot in the doorway, and they are there for whatever time they're there. And our security staff is excellent. They know exactly what's going on. But in defense of the investor owners or the non-resident owners who are renting their property, they can't turn the people out because they suspect they're short-term renters. But that's an excellent question. And I hope we can manage, although the board has done everything humanly possible except have a nude dance in the green to get all of these extra votes. Now, Linda, that might be an idea.
Are you volunteering, Don?
Well, yes. And it's just very difficult and very disheartening. But I do like the idea of the community competition. And I think you've done that very gently. That's your way. But maybe if you publish statistics saying how many votes were in for each community, that would embarrass some of us to action. Do you have another question? You had two.
I did. So my second question is, Jeanette, knowing that you have, you live in a condo association, and we are owners in a condo association in Grayhawk also, what are your ideas to get the residents of the condos, whether they are renters or permanent residents or seasonal residents, more involved in community activities or more involved in Grayhawk in general?
Well, I just got off the board of Cachet at Grayhawk because I was on just a few too many boards. But in Cachet, we started a social committee specifically so that neighbors could get to know neighbors. And the more you know your neighbors, then the more engaged you are in the community as a general rule. And so I think if we can continue to explore new options for different kinds of things. Now we have a lot of book clubs. We started with just one book club called the Grayhawk Book Club because I thought there would only be one, but it got too big. And so now I believe we're up to 6 book clubs so that people can meet their neighbors. And so the more diversity we have in the types of events that we offer, you know, you need family events to bring the families out, but then you need maybe, I mean, we do bunco, I think we do cards. So there are different things. I just think the more diversity we have in the types of events we offer, then that's going to get people more engaged. And if we as individuals engage 1 or 2 people in our neighborhood, then they're going to engage somebody else. And so it's a snowball effect. And I mean, I felt terrible because one of the people that lived in Monterey that was in the book club that I'm in, and I think we were the 5th, she moved out because she didn't know anybody. And I was like, that's awful. You know, and we just, this last year, started a book club just for winter visitors. So that way they don't feel bad that they're not here for the rest of the year. So,
right, and I know about all those because I am actively involved in a lot of those activities, but I'm saying specifically to try to draw them and make them more aware, because I feel that the condo associations seem to feel separate from the rest of the community, and I almost feel like somebody needs to actually go there and do like a
I'm going to make you smile. I'm not a candidate, but I'm in the know. This president of our GCA board, Linda Shaw, I believe 4 years ago, while I was still on the board, began our first efforts to gather the condo association presidents together once a month for conversation and mutual support. That was not an easy job because they were territorial, they were resentful. I'll be blunt, Linda wouldn't say this quite this way, but she's always more charming than I am. Some of them refused to participate. More and more that has changed. Through Linda's leadership with the executive committee and the board, when I was serving, we instituted condo community grants. And the condos were allowed to apply for money specifically for condo associations from the Community Enhancement Fund that was earmarked just for special projects that they wanted to accomplish that would benefit their unique association. That improved some of the attitudes, I think, to a moderate extent. We still run with the problem of the individual condo associations wanting to be their own insular little communities. And your goals, the desire that you have, suffer because of that. It's not one big happy family. It's this father and stepmother in this bedroom, and this father and stepmother in this bedroom, and this father and stepmother down in the den. But I know that the board has been very, very active in trying to pull them together. We do online advertising, we do print paper advertising. We have one of the finest glossy Greyhawk Flight community newsletters of any condo association. If the boards of the condo association don't inspire their members to participate in the greater community, it's difficult. I would just assure you that I believe it's fair to say we have reached out with long, open arms, and we're still doing things that help to bridge that chasm. But it's still difficult. I just want you to know, and not all the candidates would know about that, but that's what's going on. It's still ongoing. If you've got ideas on how to do that better, she's the lady to see because she has been adamant about that. She also was the president of the Avion Association for 8 some odd years. And by the way, took that community through a successful vote to approve large individual assessments to repair the structures of their units. And that vote passed. Our whole Greyhawk community is struggling more with our singular vote on the long-term, short-term rentals. Do you have a comment, Richard, about this?
I don't.
That's okay. As candidates, they might not. Jeanette has a second comment.
Okay, one, I love the idea. If you've got ideas, you know, we'd love to hear. But also, at this, I believe, just a couple months ago, our board president and a representative of the staff have been trying to attend the annual meetings for the condo associations.
I would like to ask Richard to share with the audience and with the camera here your job since you retired from the school district, because I think what you have done in the past few years is of great meaning to the Greyhawk community.
Are you talking about the REMS grant, the safety issue? Okay, after I retired, the school district got a REMS grant from Department of Homeland Security and Department of Ed. And so for 2 years, PV School District, I was coordinator of early response planning. That was a big title. But we would go around schools and to see what issues they had as far as safety for students. And, you know, in light of everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks and really over the last 14 years, it was an important issue. So when you go to any elementary school, high school, middle school, or site that PV has, we had police and Homeland Security and FBI and all that working with us to enhance the safety. Some of the things that we installed, people had to get used to. As I was talking before, a lot of us like to just walk in a building because everybody knows us. Well, that's not the case anymore. So, you know, once again, the safety issue is huge. For me, when I see all this stuff on TV, you know, I'm thinking, okay, what did we do here? How could we have improved it and all that kind of thing? And it's just an issue that unfortunately we're gonna have to live with. I do know that when I go to a movie or when I go to a baseball game or even a Friday night football game, I always look around to see what's going on and if there's a way out and all that kind of thing, which is unfortunately something we have to do. But without elaborating anymore, that's what I did for a couple years.
I just think that's a great help to the community, and it means that you've been out there and know a lot of different places and things that are going on.
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
think that's a benefit.
It was huge for me because as being a principal of a high school, I had my small community.
Mhm.
And when I retired,
Expanded
I was
it.
able to go in the whole area, work with Scottsdale Police. So yes, you're exactly right. It was just an eye-opener to me what we didn't have as a school, what we didn't have as a community, and where we needed to go. And hopefully and fortunately, you know, everybody is pretty well, if you're not educated on it now, something's wrong. But it's an issue, certainly.
If you didn't know, we have an emergency preparedness plan in Greyhawk as well. And all of our security team each has assigned jobs, and we own the equipment, generators, walkie-talkies, street barriers, bullhorns, all the kinds of things that are needed to keep our residents safe in the event of a flood or an emergency. So, especially if you're new, or if you're not reading all the time, we don't publish the same things all the time. And maybe that's something we need to think about periodically to bring everybody up to speed. But we have done great work over 20 years in being a leader of our residents' comfort and well-being. If there are, beg your pardon? No, no. He's cracking a joke. Yes.
I said 12 years, Don, that's how long I had.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
First date, maybe not
Just
so
the
much.
past. Oh, nothing happened before Michael arrived. That is true. We were dormant. If there are no more questions, I thank the three of you so very much for coming. You outnumbered the board member present, you outnumbered the staff, and we are very, very appreciative. And hope that you'll share what you learned tonight with those who didn't come that might ask you. Tell them you went and say, oh, what happened? And you're welcome to share. That's the way community politics works. Michael, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Good luck to each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Don.
Thank you.